If I open up the board editor, sounds like SpongeBob. Anyway, if we clear the board, alright, clear the board. Now, all we have right now to develop, well, first of all, we start out with kings. They're both on the same line. That's one thing in order for visualizing the board. Understand that the king side is always going to be over here. If you're looking from white's point of view, it's going to be on your right. If you're looking on but it's always going to be this side of the board. Oops. This is the king side. Oops. And this is the queen side. You get the queen. Sometimes you got to break down the board in order to learn how to visualize. So you have the queens all over here. And the kings all over there. This is kind of a helpful tool. Makes it really easy. Obviously this is an illegal position. You can't have more than one king. And you definitely can't have kings checking. Oops. Definitely cannot have kings checking themselves. This is just for visualizing. So you see you have the king side, the queen side, black camp, white camp. If you split the board down in half, but then you can split it down in fours. I guess you could get really technical and break it down to knight side or bishop side. Not going to go there right now. That's a little bit too deep. Basically, in the beginning of the game, you want to get your pawns out to the center. You want to defend those pawns. And you want to get your bishops out of the way of the king and king the castle. So you got two rooks here. Remember that you always have the rooks on both sides here. They're not connected. Right now, they're with the king in the way. They're not connected. What you want to do in the opening is you want to move that. Oops. You want to get the king side is always going to be faster to oops. I meant over here. Because the bishop and the knight are in the way on the king side. On the queen side, the bishop, the knight, and the queen are all in the way. So, what you need to do is you want to decide first, depending on what your opponent's doing, whether you're going to castle king side or whether you're going to castle queen side. So, as soon as you castle, it allows you to connect your rook. So, you're going to get this bishop possibly over here to prevent some kind of, especially if white moves their bishop here. Gets the knight out of a pin. Because if this is here, if white has a bishop here, it's staring. Oh, I don't think I can do arrows on. Oh, I can switch. Oops. Yeah, I can't do arrows, I don't think. So, that bishop is now looking at the queen. The knight's in the way, yes. But if black moves this knight, let's say attacks the bishop, in some kind of attempt to attack the knight. You just gotta remember that whenever you make a move, your opponent has the ability to make a move before you can make another. If you can move twice, then obviously you'd want to move here, and then you would take. But that's not the case. The case is that when you move, your opponent can move. So if let's just say you're thinking, okay, I need to attack this bishop. I'm going to move this knight here. It's going to attack that bishop. Well, guess what? Bishop can now take that queen. And yeah, black can take that knight, that bishop. But that's a bishop in exchange for a queen. This is one of the things that basic chess analysis entails. Is we need to think about, if I make a move, what can my opponent do? And if I allow them to achieve something, will it be beneficial for them, or will it be beneficial for me? It's not. I see a lot of newer players, I've noticed, once they learn the moves of the game, and sometimes a lot of people learn the moves of the game, but they don't fully learn the moves of the game. And that's a mistake in my book. If you don't understand all the legal moves that you can make, like how to move a pawn, how to en passant, how to castle, how the knight moves, how to checkmate, what a checkmate is, at least. How to checkmate is a matter of strategy. But what a checkmate is, it means that your king has no legal squares to go to on their turn. And what a stalemate means that you're not in check, which means check means that your king is under attack, but you have no legal moves to go to, which means that it's a draw. Both players neither win or lose, which both players get half a point if it's a tournament setting. So another thing is, you can't put your king through check. You can't castle check. You can't that's why you can't have two kings next to each other. This is never a legal move. You can never have the king and the king next to each other. Because, it's not because, you see, the changing and thinking happens when you think, not that you can't have kings next to each other, but that you can't put your king into check. And if you moved your king next to your king, you would be disobeying that law. Which really, there is a list of, FIDE, rules of chess. This is legality. This is like a law book. Here. I really like FIDE's Laws of Chess. This is the official FIDE handbook, Laws of Chess. And it's written like a law book. So, it's really, I think it's like a one-page read. If you really want to get better at chess, read this handbook. At least as far as the laws of, this talks about, the actual, tournament stuff. But the basic rules of play. The game of chess played between two opponents who move their pieces on a square board called chessboard. Having this clarity of thought allows you, it seems like a lot at first. It seems like a lot. I'm not gonna lie. It seems like a lot. But you spend some time to actually, a lot of people, I think, I'm not gonna get too deep in philosophical or political, especially on this channel where I try to avoid political issues, or social issues or whatever. But one of the biggest issues, and I take care of this in my writing, because I'm a writer and I also play chess, and as a writer, I like to try to, obviously the story comes first, but the thing is that when we write, we even when we're trying to commercialize something to the extreme, the most commercial endeavors on the planet still have core beliefs and philosophical notions because they're made by human beings. And human beings inevitably have core beliefs. And so even if it's extreme that's why I really don't like it when people just completely trash things just because they're quote unquote sellouts or whatever. What's my point? My point is that when you take the time to really understand, the reason why one of the issues I have is a lot of people don't like reading long books or, even watching long videos or, whatever. And the issue is because people say, I don't have time to watch it. The thing is, if you're serious about something, I mean, obviously, if it's just something you don't really care about, then yeah, that's fine. Like, if you're just watching random videos on YouTube, you don't really want to watch some comedy video for an hour about a guy slamming his face into a wall or something. But if you're serious about learning something like chess or writing or music or any craft, like, you need to take the time. Because, I mean, even let's just say reading a book. Let's say you have a 1,000-page book. I'm reading Wheel of Time. Each book, it's a 14-book series. Each book is 1,000 pages. And this isn't a spoiler about the story, but the writer actually died before he finished the series. And a lot of people are worried about George R. R. Martin, the author of Song of Ice and Fire, and a lot of and most of the screenplays for Game of Thrones on HBO. People are worried he's going to die before he finishes the series. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's close. But anyway, Robert Jordan died before he finished it, and Brandon Sanderson finished the last book, which he ended up changing from the last book to the last 3 books, and made it a trilogy, which I'm kind of excited about that. I'm on book 5 right now. It's still in the Robert Jordan story. But my point is those books are 1,000 pages long, and a lot of people, especially younger people, see a 1,000-page book and they just automatically say, oh, I'm not going to read that, it's too much. But the thing is, when you sit down to read, you're only going to be reading for a set amount of time anyway. Like, let's say you read 20 minutes a night before you go to bed. So, whether it's 1,000 pages or 10 pages, what does that even matter? So, I mean, you could always continue it later. So the thing is, if you are really serious about chess, and you want to get better at chess, learn this handbook. I've read it before. It's probably been updated, so I could probably use a read again. But, it tells you about, I mean, it talks about the specific legalities of FIDE tournaments. But, I mean, the thing is, you really want to learn the official FIDE rules, because that's where chess is played. This is how chess is played in any official tournament around the world. I mean, obviously, if you're playing a variant of chess, there's going to be different rules. And obviously, if you're not playing in a tournament, there's going to be different rules. But if your plan is to play tournaments, and even if you don't want to play tournaments, you just want to play casually, knowing the basic rules of chess, like this is what a king looks like. I mean, a lot of people get the king and queen confused. So if you understand that the king always has, just 1 point, the queen always has 5, and also that the queen is going to have, the king is always going to be on this side and the queen's always going to be on this side. Just flipped around, obviously it's going to be, but I mean the king and the king are, on both sides are both on the same file. These are called files. That's another reason is clarity of thinking. Is when you switch your thinking from random thoughts to getting a vocabulary. Like you can say things like, oh, well, I'm going to move this pawn here. Or you can say pawn to king 4. Or you could say e4. Either way, some of those are more concise than others, or d4. Some of those are more concise than others. Pawn to queen 4. That means that there's 2 different notations in chess. There's classical notation, which is based on whose turn it is. So if it's white to move, this would be pawn to queen 4 because it's 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you use another notation called algebraic notation, and a lot of people get turned away from that because people give up on things before they even start. What's going on? Oh. But why? Just spend some time on it. Things aren't so scary once you spend time on them. But anyway, my point being is basically, once you understand the vocabulary of chess, or anything, but chess, once you get the vocabulary of chess, you can start analyzing deeper. And it's a lot of people who are starting out in any kind of, chess or writing, they get these conceptions about, if I learn these things, it's going to limit me. I don't know why people think this, because if anything, it opens you up to more possibilities. Because now you don't have to pay attention to the vocabulary. You don't have to think, oh, how do I explain how this bishop is here, why I need to put the bishop here, I can't move that, because this, if I don't want to lose a queen, this bishop is here, that means I can't move it. It adds all these layers of unnecessary explanation, when all you have to do is say, oh, this knight is pinned. All right, if you study what the vocabulary means, and you understand what pinned means, then you don't have to think about it anymore. You can think about, okay, this knight is pinned, so how do I deal with it? Now you can actually analyze. You can actually go in and think about, okay, how do I get out of that situation? And you're like, oh, if I put the bishop to king 2, now the bishop is, now I can move that knight. Because now if I move that knight, not only am I attacking the bishop with the knight, but this bishop is also attacking the knight. And if white takes the bishop, then black can take the bishop with the queen. And now there's a whole field available to you for analysis. You're no longer limited to thinking only one move deep. You can think maybe 2 or 3 moves deep, because now you're spending less time on vocabulary and more time on actual strategy. So, but yeah, basically in the opening, okay, I'm going to show you this. These pawns are here. But if you take away those pawns, or take away the pawns that, let's just say these are defensive pawns. These are really the only pawns that matter in the opening. I mean, that's not true, but for understanding the theory of the opening. Because if you think about this, the center is the strong. Let's say you have 4 queens. Now, and let's use these pawns as. Let's just say white has a bunch of pawns. So this queen is attacking these 3 pawns, these 3 pawns, these 3 pawns, these 3 pawns, and these 3 pawns. So that's 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 15 pawns. Now let's say this queen. Okay, let's even move these queens out of the way and show it even further. 4 pawns, 4 pawns, and 4 pawns. So it's talking 3 times 5, 15, plus 12, plus 4 times 3, 12. 12 and 15. 15 and 15 is 30, minus 3 is 27. 27 pawns. Now let's say this queen was, instead of here, queen was here. Alright, so all these, okay, now it adds some, these pawns. But now it takes away all these other pawns. So now it's attacking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, because you know it's an 8x8 board, that if there's 1 square, then there's going to be 7. 7, 10, 18, and 21. That's 21 squares. And yeah, you could argue that because in a real game situation, this queen's a little bit safer because you would have these pawns here. So it would be harder for the opponent to attack this queen. Still, if you control the center, I don't think, I mean, I could show other ways too. This knight, for example. This knight is here. It's attacking these pawns, these pawns, these pawns, and these pawns. In a full circle. 2, 4, 6, 8. You can go to any of those squares. Likewise, if you have the knight, let's say, right here. Well, now, you can only go there. That's 2. Now, if the knight was here, it's more, this is actually in the center. It's still better than the corner. Now it can go here, and that doubles the amount of moves. But it's still not as good. And also, if you tilt your head to the left, you can almost picture that this side is the same, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, as if the knight were here. So really, there's 4 sides to the board. You could pretend that any of those sides is the first left, which is a good way to think when it comes to trying to checkmate your opponent. If you can get your opponent's king to the side of the board, especially the corner of the board, but I mean the side of the board on any of these sides is going to be close to a checkmate. Especially if they're in the corner. The corners are always going to have a lot less moves than the center. Because, I mean, you look at the king here. You can move anywhere here. Any option. So, it makes sense that if you let your opponent control the center, you're going to be having a hard time controlling their attack. I mean, defending against their attack. So, you have these pawns here. Then, if your opponent moves a pawn here without defending it, then it can be attacked. So, that's why, the thing is we have the option. And let me go to an analysis board. Oops. So here we have the usual turn events in a standard opening. Since obviously White's gonna want to completely just put pawn here, put pawn here. Oh, let's see. Put pawn here, knight here, and let's just say for argument's sake, bishop here and bishop here. I mean, obviously that's not going to be as good. I mean, let's just say bishop here and bishop here. Or possibly bishop here. There's lots of options. I'm just going to say right here because it's safer. And then obviously the castle, let's say castle's, white castle's king side. And now rooks. Let's say rooks are here, rook's here, and the queen's here. So obviously you don't want your opponent getting that, because if you allow your opponent to get that let's just say every single turn you just moved your knight in there and then moved it back. So if every single turn, black just moved their knight here and then moved it back. Oh, and then obviously the rest of the pawns. Oops. So if white was allowed this position, I would definitely rather play white than black. Because, yeah, you could say that black has a defensive position and is more defended, but in reality, if you were allowed this position, white would be able to just destroy you. Because look, white has this file here with the queen and the rook. You would have to spend time as black, trying to develop your pieces similar to how white has. If as a fun exercise, here, let's actually continue from here. I've never done that. Oops. Let's continue from this position, playing against the computer. Which is higher? Not sure if higher is stronger or not. Oops. Just do this. You can see that's 10 moves that white took to achieve this. So obviously in a real game, and let's say white to move here, and that's 10 moves that every single time you make a move, your opponent has the option of making a move. So this is definitely a fancy position. Continue from here.